Hey, all of you beautiful humans. Are you ready to find happiness? Welcome back to another episode of the Search for Serotonin podcast, the show all about destigmatizing mental illnesses, dismantling society's version of perfection, and helping you define your own meaning of happiness. Join me, your host, Carolyn Farrick, as I have open, honest, and vulnerable conversations about my own mental health and my diagnosis with OCPD, a perfectionism personality disorder. We all deserve to find happiness on our own terms, and we don't need to find happiness alone. So welcome to the Search Committee. All right, guys. We're doing something a little bit different this week. Not really too much different, but just my recording style. I wanted to switch it up a little bit for everybody out there. And I know I sound really low energy right now. But keep with me, guys. It's gonna make sense. But yeah, so my issue with podcasting, which I love it, it's great. But my issue is I feel like I try and record an episode all at once. And when I sit down to record, I have my notes, I have my plans, and then, I'm like, oh, I have to be high energy so people want to listen. But I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out what works for me, what the new me even is, And a part of this season, I want to share more of my experiences with you guys. So I've decided that I want to try and record each, section and segment of the podcast, whatever. Whenever I'm feeling inspired to in the moment. So today, right now it's 8:00 in the morning. I just dropped Corbin off at work, and I just was feeling really emotional today, I really suck at voicing how I feel a lot of the times, and I don't even know why I'm crying right now. What the fuck? It's 2 minutes into this episode, so if you're new here, I'm sorry. But it's just I needed to talk about this because it was the perfect example because I don't know what happened. I've been doing all of this stuff. I've been trying to improve my situation, but that doesn't mean, every day is going to be perfect. And there's still going to be hard days, but today was one of those hard days, and it's still 8 a.m. So, there's so much time for the day to progress and change and for better things to happen. But I just was feeling really angry today. I don't know why, but I wanted to kind of share with you guys my headspace and where I'm at, when I'm going through shit, because it's not easy, it's not cute, it's not fun to talk about, but the more we talk about it, the better it is. So when I get really anxious or just this feeling my body something's not right, I I don't know how to respond a lot of the times. And so that's what I'm trying to get better at. I'm trying to learn tools and coping mechanisms, but you can practice all you want, but you're still gonna flop sometimes, you're still gonna mess it up or be a fucking fuck up, but that's okay because that's what we're here for, Like, we're all imperfect, but I try the best that I can. I know I let my emotions win a lot of the time, and I need to get better at keeping myself in check and finding a way to communicate what I'm going through without anger or guilt or shame or fear, blocking that. And so, yeah, just trying to be more vulnerable. And this morning feels like a loss, but it's not a loss because, like I said, it's 8 in the morning. There's so much time to change it around. And, I can only control what I feel, what I do. I could go lay in bed and say, fuck today, but I have so much stuff that I want to do for myself, I'm starting to get my shit together. And a part of getting my shit together is you know, getting my business in order. And so I don't talk about this on the podcast ever, but I started this podcast and I registered it as a business, an LLC, because, I was like, I want to start doing my own stuff. And I was like, well, I don't know. I'm not qualified to like sell anything. I thought I had to base it all around the podcast, or like, I don't know how to help people. I can't offer a service because I'm not a professional. I'm not qualified. And I told myself all the reasons that I couldn't do the stuff that I wanted. And instead, I was like, oh, I'll just like, do social media for people because that's easy. I've been doing it my whole life. But I hate social media. I fucking hate it. Like, I love doing my own podcast page. That's fun because that's like I have full control. I can be in the moment and be like, fuck it, I'm posting, or oh, this thing happened and I think that's cool to share. So I'm posting about it. Like, I don't have any issue with that. But, sitting there and doing other people's social media and like moving other people's businesses forward and, like growing their pages so, they get more clients and more money while I'm still like not knowing what my business is or what I'm doing or like how I want to help people. And I'm like, I don't want to just like work for other people because like that's the whole reason I left higher education. I was like, I don't want to report to people. I don't want people dictating what I need to do in a week. But I've really struggled with the business side because I'm like, I can't tell people I have a podcast business and do virtual assistant work because A, that's too complicated to explain that the podcast is the business, but the podcast doesn't like make money or, it isn't like a bam, snap of your fingers and I like the podcast blew up. Like it's a slow grow process with this shit. And like you have to really want it to like work through it because a lot of people just give up. And I don't want to give up on this because it's my outlet, it's my area. Like I do this to help me as much as I do it to help you guys because, you know, this is where I can really just be me and open up about my stories in a way that I don't do in my real life, which yes, I need to get better at. And I'm like, if I just put it out in a podcast, that's basically me telling the people in my life. So why continue to bring it up? But anyway, back to the whole business thing. Like, it's hard to be confident in this business when I'm like, I don't know what the business is, and it feels a little messy and it feels a little chaotic, just like everything else in my life. So I have all these ideas, for what I want to do or how I want to, move my business forward. And I just let people walk all over me in my personal life, in my business, that's why like that's why I'm just like at a point, in my personal life, in my business, in everything. I'm done people pleasing. I'm done. I'm not fucking doing it. I'm done. So just like the overwhelm of like being ashamed of my business and, you know, being like, oh, social media sucks. I hate it. Like all of those things wrapped up has made me like, push myself to finally produce other ideas for my business, push myself to start working on them. But like I was saying in the beginning of this episode, like I'm spreading myself too thin. I'm always like, oh, I have to worry about like what everyone else needs of me. And I'm not giving that time for myself to get done what I need to get done. Like for so long, like I just stopped working on my own stuff. So I want to be more cohesive in all areas of my life. That means my personal life, setting boundaries, making time for me as a priority, making time for myself. And then my business, I'm not going to be ashamed of it anymore. I'm going to start actually putting in the work and making time for myself, like blocking out time in my schedule for me to be like, nothing else matters during this time. This is time that I need to get my business shit done because I have some really cool fucking ideas. Like, I may be mentally ill, but this brain there's a lot going on up there in that noggin. So I'm just like ready to finally put these pieces into place that I have been working on and thinking about for a really long time. I just got to take the action and follow through. And like I said, I want to be more accountable. And so that starts with me. I got to hold myself to my own shit and worry less about, everyone else and just kind of hone in on Carolyn. So, yeah. All right, cool. Well, that was really therapeutic for me to get my feelings out and just dump that into podcast recording. Um, so yeah, beginning rant of the episode is complete, and let's get into therapy think now. It's time for Therapy Think, a segment all about destigmatizing mental health through therapy. During this segment, I will give you a sneak peek inside of my weekly therapy sessions and share what I took away from therapy this week. All right, let's get into Therapy Think. But before we do that, I just wanted to give you guys an update because the beginning portion of this episode, I actually recorded it a couple days ago. And I know I said I wanted to record each segment more like in the moment and less in a like chronological order and sit down and do it all at once. However, this week and the weekend kind of got switched around. Some of my plans got moved. So on that day that I recorded, I took some time in the morning after recording to just like, sit and read a book or journal or like, watch some tapping videos, which I'm going to be talking about a lot more in this segment. So I cannot wait to get into that. But yeah, that helped. And I was able to kind of calm down, really express my true emotions and not, the like quick to react emotions. It was like the deeper emotions of why I was feeling that way. So that was good. And then also later that day, I had a podcast recording. I was being a guest on someone else's podcast. So I was featured on the Stories That Inspire Us podcast with Janice. And oh my gosh, that podcast recording went so well. I mean, I've done podcast recordings before for other people's podcasts and they go fine. I have a background in public speaking. I'm not, shy about asking or answering questions, especially when they're about me. Like it's so easy for me to do that. But Janice came into my life about a month ago. We connected on Facebook, and she did like a pre-screen call with me, just to make sure that I'd be a good fit for her podcast and her audience. And actually, on the day that we first connected, it was another day where I was really down mentally and I was being really hard on myself. And she and I just like immediately clicked on the call. Like she just like is a sweet older woman who is just so wise and, very vulnerable with herself and her story and her family's story. And I really appreciated, that honesty from her straight away. But then also, she also said some really nice things about me to me, that were like unprompted. Like she didn't need to go out of her way to like compliment me or like point these things out. Um, so she really brightened my mood then. And so, when I woke up that day of the podcast recording and I was, crying into my microphone before 8 a.m., um, I was thinking in my head, "Oh, I'm so anxious, like, I don't wanna do this recording, like, I know she's nice, and I'm really excited about this podcast because I think it's a great concept." I was like, "I just don't wanna do it." But instead, I did my stuff, my journaling, my reading, taking my time for just me, drinking some water, eating a yogurt, just chilling out for a little bit. And then I was like, I'm gonna straighten my hair. I don't straighten my hair in summer because it's too fucking hot and just gets frizzy anyway, and I sweat so much and it's just gross. So I, did my hair, did my makeup, made myself feel good, put on a cute outfit, all that kind of stuff. And once again, me and Janice had an amazing conversation. She is such a skilled interview. She just authentically listens to what her guest is saying and she thinks of some pretty deep and really interesting questions that, she threw me off guard with some of them, but in the best way possible. They were all really, really great. Um, so if you guys want to go check that out and kind of see, how my mood shifted really from that morning, You can find that interview with Janice on the Stories That Inspire Us podcast through the link in my bio on the Search for Serotonin Instagram page. And it also can be found on YouTube. So if you just look up Stories That Inspire Us, it should pop up. So with that being said, my mood definitely increased on Thursday. It was still draining to go throughout the day, but I did it. I got up. I was there. All right. So like I said, therapy think. Let's get into these topics because I think these, what I talked about in therapy this week with Tina is actually pretty interesting. So this week in therapy, I really focused on talking about how I've been prioritizing taking care of myself. Because like I said in the past couple episodes, when I get depressed, I don't really prioritize myself. So I was really focusing on, the other week I talked about Brene Brown's book and her dig deep concept and how, DIG all stand for different actions you can take when you're feeling overwhelmed or you're feeling anxious or you're stressed. So I've been trying to put that into play more. So, when I am feeling anxious, like this past week, I was feeling really, really anxious the one day. I couldn't get anything done. And it was because of no reason. Like nothing. It was a good day. Everything went right. But my whole chest was just tensed up. I couldn't focus. I couldn't breathe right. And so, I put dig into consideration. I deliberated that, I just needed to relax and find something to distract myself that was calming and more of self-care rather than like flinging myself into like being productive. And then I identified that, a movie would probably be the best thing for me. I wanted to, just be able to sit and have something on. And if I paid attention to it, great. But if I didn't, like, I could just work on getting out of my own head. And then I got going. So, I heated up some food and grabbed some water. And then I came upstairs to my bedroom, which we're in right now. And then I put on Breakfast at Tiffany's, which I'm such an Audrey Hepburn stan. Um, so that was nice. And watching the movie really did help pull me out of the anxiety. And um, it was nice to, put that practice into place because I've been talking about it on the podcast and having it actually be useful in the moment. So if you can remember that, the DIG, Dig Deep process by Brene Brown, I liked it. So far, it's been going good. It's really helped me start to prioritize that work-life balance that I've been trying to achieve. And so with that, I really talked to Tina about how I can let things in my life go that I really don't need to be holding on to anymore. This, limiting beliefs, um, boundaries in my relationships, how my relationships dynamics work. And not just me and Corbin's relationship, but all of the relationships in my life. And something that I found to be really, really helpful, especially with, letting go of what's no longer serving me, getting rid of limiting beliefs in my head that aren't necessarily true, has been the process of using EFT tapping every morning. So I try and at least do it Monday through Friday. Like I said, I watch free YouTube videos through Maria Bonita, who is a guest on the podcast in season 1. If you scroll to her episode on Spotify or Apple Podcast or wherever you're listening, down in the show notes, you'll find the link to her YouTube channel. And she does 30 days of tapping. Every day has a different theme and it's all for free. So that has been a great resource. And this week I actually did some ones that kind of go along with, the theme of prioritizing yourself. And so, in the one she was talking about procrastinating tapping. So I was like, I need this because with OCPD, procrastination is such a huge piece of it, because you don't want to start because it's not going to be perfect. So then you just put it off because why even bother if it's not good to go? And so Maria basically defined procrastination as, it's just self-sabotage. And that really stood out to me because, again, with the OCPD diagnosis, like I said, I always procrastinate. And it's because of that fear of being not going to be, I'm not going to be perfect, whatever. It's just easier to stay comfortable and complacent instead of, taking that next step or putting yourself out there or being vulnerable. If you listening out there, maybe you have a 9 to 5 job or a corporate job and you are afraid to ask for a raise or you're afraid to ask for a promotion that like you could easily get. Like I've been in that situation before where I'm like, oh well, I don't qualify, or why would they consider me, or they'd much rather just hire someone who's better. And so like letting those things get in the way of you elevating your life and you elevating your experiences, um you know it's self-sabotage because it's easier to stay comfortable than the concept of failing. And so I thought that was really cool, and I really, held that in my mind. And then the next day's video was actually titled Activate Your Magic. And so that continued to discuss, even though if you're self-sabotaging, you don't think you're qualified, you don't think you deserve it, the magic is already inside of you. Like everything you need is already inside of you. There's just all of these walls that people put up through society, how you were raised. Like me, religious beliefs is a big factor into that. So all of those things, teach us something different than what we originally like viewed the world to be. So the world tries, like Maria was saying, the world tries so hard to numb us of our magic and power. And I felt this way after COVID, but that message of everything you need is inside of you, and that reminder is kind of inspiring because, when you are depressed and you hear that, it may not help you because you may think, well, that's for other people. That's not for me. I've been there. I've thought that before. That's why I've waited so long to do the stuff that I'm doing now, because I always thought, well, it's just me, like I'm the one who like can't change, everyone else can have these possibilities, but not me. So I really, thought that was interesting. And it was nice to be reminded that, like I don't need to wait until my business starts making more money, or I don't need to wait until, I get a new car or lose more weight or, move or whatever it is that I want to do. I don't need to get those things before I can start living and doing the things I want. Because even though, I may be depressed and I may not be in the situation that I like want to be in for the place that I am in my life. Um, but, this mindset change and all of this subconscious work has made me, like I said, see the world in a different light. Like everything is so much brighter now. Things that I used to like be so against, not wanting to do. Um, I've started, instead of saying, oh my God, no, I can't do that. Why would I do that? I'd never do that. Like something as simple as like going to the casino, because I'm like, "Oh, you can't go gamble, it's bad." Or, like when Corbin and I went to test drive cars, I was like, "Why would we test drive cars? I can't afford a new one." But we literally are about to get a 2022 brand new SUV, and it's all in our price range, all in our budget, everything we were looking for essentially. And so, if I didn't start, thinking like, "Hey, I don't have to say no to things right away. I can try these things, and if I don't like them, cool, I'll never do them again." But I've started to realize the more that I start doing these things that I've said no to in the past, or I don't think that like is something I should be doing, um, it started to become more fun because I'm like, "Wait, this isn't as scary," or "This isn't as bad as what people make it out to be," or like, it's kind of cool to not know what's coming next because, you just think, "Oh, what next can I do that's just out of the ordinary?" And so, Corbin and I, just started talking about like, our bigger goals, and one of our bigger goals is we wanna move somewhere out of Pennsylvania because we both love to travel. Um, and, when we talk about where we wanna move to, because one of our goals is to constantly talk about the progress that we're making, the small steps that we're taking to get there. Um, but the one thing, we said was, "Oh, we're gonna do all of this stuff when we move somewhere new," and, like, there's so many possibilities, and we've started, instead of being like, "Well, we'll do that when we move," we started finding ways to do that in Pittsburgh right now, getting up, going out, doing the damn thing really essentially and just getting out of our comfort zones. And like I said, it's been really fun. It's made me, kinda get excited for life again because, like, you never know what's gonna happen. So, yeah, that was a really long-winded way of saying, "Put you first, have fun, and do what makes you fucking happy." Alright, I'm gonna take a quick break, and then I will be back for mental media. Now it's time for Mental Media, a segment that aims to dismantle society's version of perfection by discussing trending news stories and how they pertain to mental health. If it's trending, then we're chatting about it. Alrighty, let's get into mental media this week. I'm gonna keep it kind of short and sweet this week, because it's a good article that I found, a good topic. Um, but it's just a quick, easy, simple story. So this week I did a search, just again, mental health news this week to see what would come up. And I found an article, I believe it is, yeah, it's NBC News, and I will link it in the show notes. But the headline was Jonah Hill says he won't promote upcoming films so he can prioritize his mental health. So I'm like, okay, Jonah Hill, big actor. He usually plays like really confident, loud, outgoing, like cocky characters. And so I'm like, oh, this is like interesting. Like, why not see what he has to say? Because there could be a number of reasons why he is choosing to prioritize his mental health and, what it means to him. So apparently, what Jonah Hill did is he wrote an open letter stating that he's experienced 20 years of panic attacks due to his media experiences and, from public facing events. And I think that's great that he's opening up about it because when I was reading this article, I was like, I never thought Jonah Hill would struggle with this, and that's just me making assumptions based on the characters he portrays in the media. But people who are actors and actresses, they play a persona. A lot of people tend to associate actors and actresses with the characters they play, and a lot of people tend to blend the character over the real human being and forget, like, hey, this is a person, it's not a fucking character. And so we saw that last week when we talked about Jeanette McCurdy and her book and her experiences on iCarly, how people would address her in public as Sam or, say things to her like from the show that like she was like, I don't like this. It makes me uncomfortable. That's a good example, that these people are real people too, and they struggle with real shit too. And us as a public tend to get so like aggressive or like defensive towards um actors and actresses because we're like, oh well, they just want fame or they just want attention or like whatever reason, but they deserve the same ability to prioritize their own mental health. If I was the level of Jonah Hill and like I was getting, attacked constantly by, people in the media, people on social media, all the time, like just getting these things. And especially with him, because he lost a lot of weight recently. And so people comment on his body a lot because he used to be, a bigger person. And there's nothing wrong with that. But, he lost a lot of weight. And having that level of people having like that observation on your body and everyone having a say or people constantly commenting on your appearance or how you act or what you do. And so, as somebody who struggles with mental health, I don't know how he does it because I would lose my mind instantly because I would just spiral. And so, I really commend Jonah Hill for speaking out. He also said that he recently finished directing his second film, which apparently is called Stutz. Um, but this is interesting because this, I think, is going to be his next movie that's released. And it's a documentary about him and his therapist and mental health. Which I think is amazing for somebody at his level to do this documentary and go behind the scenes of, him and therapy and what he's working on and how it's helped him, for someone with that platform and that level of fame to be like, "Hey, this is really important. We need to start talking about this shit," you know? Like, to see him do this on such a large platform is, I think, very commendable, very inspiring because especially being in the public eye, you know, you're not always received in the right way, and I'm sure people will say, "Oh, he's just doing this for attention," or whatever, but I think it's a brilliant idea because you gotta protect you, and he's like basically, he's like, "I'm gonna give, you know, therapy and the tools that I've learned in therapy to a wider audience because mental health services aren't always accessible in this country. You know, it can be very expensive without insurance or very hard, if you have, you know, certain types of insurance, um, and it's not always an option for a lot of people. So the fact that I get to sit in therapy every week and I get to come on this podcast and tell you guys, "Hey, this is what I'm talking about in therapy this week," I view that as such a privilege. I view that as an investment into myself, but I am so lucky that I have the means in my life to do that every single week. And it does help that, you know, I'm 25. I'm still on my mom's insurance. She works a government job, so she gets great benefits. And so I'm lucky that I have the opportunity to do that. And he also acknowledged his privilege of being, you know, somebody who had the luxury of prioritizing their mental health or, you know, being able to say, you know, this is bad for my anxiety, so I'm not doing media tours anymore. I'll do the movies, but I'm not doing the red carpets. I'm not doing the interviews. Like, he's like, I know that I can not do these things and I have this privilege and I won't lose my job because of it. I think that's also good of him to do because he's just being really transparent and saying, like, you know, he's able to do this, but not everybody can. So that's why he wants to put this project out. The thing I really want to comment on is the fact that, you know, like, he's like, this isn't going to affect my job. And that got me thinking about when I worked in higher education because I had really bad post pandemic social anxiety, which I know a ton of people have felt this way as well. You know, Janice and I talked about this during our interview, and she brought up how, you know, so many people struggled with heightened anxiety after the pandemic. So when I was forced to go back into the office, it was like way before a lot of people started going back into an office. And so it made me really stressed out. And so once I got my promotion and I had my own office, I would just kind of hide in there because I'm like, physically couldn't, like, you know, because I was so concerned about, like, you know, you know, COVID and interacting with people. And then also just the fact of like, I was like, I've been stuck inside for a year. I don't know how to interact with people anymore. And like, you know, when you're having a bad mental health day, especially in the corporate world, you know, you can't take off every Thursday, you know, or every Monday and be like, "Oh, I'm having a bad mental health day," or, you know, you can't do that. And to me, I was like, if I continuously take days off, it's gonna make me look flaky or unreliable or like a bad employee. And like I said, I really think Jonah Hill is doing something powerful. You know, he has several movies coming out in the near future, but instead of marketing those movies and, you know, going on the red carpet, he's instead saying, "No, like, I'm gonna vocalize my mental health and do what's important to me." And I think that's such a powerful message for everybody out there because nothing, not even, you know, a celebrity going to a red carpet movie premiere should hold more value than the care that you give yourself, you know, because at the end of the day, you need to be physically okay, you need to be mentally okay, or, you know, nothing else matters. So that was nice to see him, along with the theme of the week, prioritize himself and share that with the world. So again, that article will be linked below in the show notes. Please go read that for yourself. And if you want to learn more on that, I suggest that you do some more of your own research. All right, guys, let's get into Serotonin Script now. Our final segment of the week is Serotonin Script. This segment is all about filling your weekly prescription of serotonin. I will share what sparked serotonin in my life this week to hopefully inspire you to find your own version of happiness. If you want to share how you searched for your weekly dose of serotonin, then DM at the Search for Serotonin on Instagram to be featured on next week's segment of Serotonin Script. this week for Serotonin Script, I am so excited to share about what brought me serotonin this week because, like the whole other theme of the episode, I did some self care, baby. I put me first and I did something that I have been talking about doing for a long ass time. And that is, fixing one of my biggest insecurities. So, I'm gonna be real vulnerable, real open with y'all real quick. Um, my biggest insecurities stem from my teeth is a big one. The other thing is on my left ear. I have my first holes done, I had my second holes done, and then I have my cartilage done. But the second hole on my left ear, the lady put it way too low. And so over time, it would just get lower and lower, lower. And then it finally, my earring just pulled out of my ear. And now I don't have a second hole on my left side. I just have a little like slit in my ear essentially. So the third and final insecurity that I really, really fixate on is my eyebrows. And my eyebrows were something that I used to get bullied for pretty heavy because they used to be really full and really thick. And, in middle school or whatever, people would always tell me, like, oh, you need to tweeze your eyebrows. You need to tweeze those down. Like, you need to make those smaller. And so I got really self-conscious about it. And I started tweezing. And then I started over tweezing. And then I started fixating on it and continuing to over tweeze. And then I started, shaving around, not even with like one of those little like nice like shaver things that help you get like really close to the brow. Like I was taking a full ass razor and just like shaving down the side of my head, which ultimately led to me shaving off half of my eyebrow when I was like a senior in high school. And so then that just led to more insecurities because I went from having too big of eyebrows to having too small of eyebrows to having literally like half an eyebrow. Um, and no matter, what I did to fill them in, they never looked right. They never looked the same. So I decided to fix that. And, since I'm starting to be a little bit more open about money and feeling less like holding on to it, which those are all OCPD traits. OCPD people feel like they need to hold on to their money, like it's not going to come back if they let it go, so they're like really frugal because things like this where I'm like, oh, I could get microblading done, but I can't afford it, I don't have the money for that, when in reality I could, and the other thing with the whole, three insecurities all being on my face, I also saw in the OCPD research community that I'm a part of that, other people were posting about how their OCPD manifested in like their appearance. So, when they look in the mirror or how they portray themselves on Instagram, and those perfectionism fixations tend to be on your appearance and those visual flaws that you see in yourself. So if you're watching YouTube, you can see that these are my microbladed brows. Jesus, that was rough. But they're not fully healed yet. They're gonna get really darker before they heal and get lighter and look a little bit more like some hair on my face, but I already am obsessed with them. I got it done. It was like a 3-hour process, but it was so nice to just be like, I'm treating myself. I can do this for me, I can afford it, and I can just go have a day where I can just be happy that I'm getting this insecurity fixed. Um and when they showed me at the end with the mirror, I literally like was speechless. Like my jaw was hanging open because I was like, holy shit, like I should have done this so much like sooner. That was my serotonin this week because like everything else I talked about this week, we're putting us first. So yeah, this was a long-winded way of me telling you guys that it's fun to put yourself first. It's fun to take care of yourself, and it's fun to just like enjoy living, which I don't know, might not be helpful for some people to hear, but I don't know. I wish I kind of let go of like all of this sooner so I could have been enjoying life sooner, but c'est la vie. The time is now, and I'm making the most of it. All right, you guys, that is it for this week's episode. Um, Thanks for bearing with me through all of my rambling. Um, I hope you guys enjoyed this week's topics. If you have a story you want to see me talk about for mental media, feel free to DM me on the Instagram. Or if you ever want to talk about the mental media aspects that we're talking about, feel free to slide into those DMs at the Search for Serotonin on Instagram. Or if you want to share what your source of serotonin was this week, be sure to send that in to the Instagram as well for a chance to be featured on next week's episode or any of the upcoming episodes that I will be putting out. And also, if you are watching on YouTube, make sure you hit like and subscribe so you can see more of my face and hear more of my rants. All right, you guys, that is all, like I said, for this week. I hope you all prioritize yourselves a little more this week. Say fuck it, give yourself some good ass self care, and I will see you all back here next Monday. All right, you guys, I love you. Have a great week, and always remember to live loud.